Yo, welcome back to Inner Peace Meditation. I'm Ed Woodstock, and today's talk is about letting go. But before we get into the talk, let's share a few deep breaths. First, releasing all the air from our lungs, exhaling. Empty them. Inhale deeply through the nose, fill the belly. Fill the chest. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1, and slowly release. Release some more. Inhale through the nose, fill the belly. Fill the chest. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1, release. Release some more. Inhale through the nose. Fill the belly. Fill the chest. Hold. 4, 3, 2, 1. Release with a sigh. And sometimes just a few deep belly breaths can ground us and connect us to our bodies and take us out of our head where our monkey minds can sometimes run a little wild. And so it's good to be able to just kind of teach ourselves that when we're feeling overwhelmed or stressed out, that we can breathe deeply into the belly, take in a little more air, breathe a little more slowly, and release some tension from our bodies. And in order for us to let go of the things that we feel like we're holding on to, or maybe we don't even know what we're holding on to, it's important that we identify exactly what it is we want to release. But how do we identify something if we've never been taught what it is, or where it comes from, or how to work with it? And speaking for myself, when I was growing up, if I would express emotions like sadness, I would be punished for it. I would be told to, no, I'll give you something to cry about. Don't, stop crying. And so I learned that to express sadness was wrong or inherently bad in some way. And so I learned to repress and suppress those emotions. And ultimately, as I got older, I wasn't dealing with those emotions in the healthiest ways because I wasn't releasing them. As I got older, I started to use alcohol to numb and distract myself from feeling these uncomfortable feelings. Or if left deeply repressed and suppressed, they would manifest themselves and come out in other ways. And for me, it was anger. And so I would notice that, I would be angry much of the time, but a lot of it was this unprocessed fear and sadness. As the saying goes, anger is fear's bodyguard, or anger is sadness's bodyguard. And so it's easy, especially as a man, coming from the background of coming from a blue-collar, working class, heavy drinking neighborhood, it was easy for me to get angry because that wouldn't compromise my strength or make me be seen as weak or less than. And as a man, especially working in a profession, I was a firefighter in Brooklyn, New York. And I also currently work as a peer mentor for military, veterans, and first responders, law enforcement, fire and rescue personnel. I find a common ground in understanding that a lot of the men in particular that I deal with and that I work with, they come to me with a lot of anger and frustration, and they're carrying around a lot of stress wounds and emotions that they've been holding on to for years, even decades, from childhood. And when you're dealing in a profession where you're dealing with an extraordinary amount of stress and trauma, we can sometimes become deeply identified with our stress and our trauma and our pain and our suffering. And that's part of the reason why it's difficult to let go of some of these heavier emotions, because when we're taught that to suffer and struggle and to take on other people's pain and suffering as our own, to be the ones that show up to help people in their time of need, it can become entrenched in our identity of who we think we are. And so if we're not taught, which I'll speak for myself, I was not taught how to identify my emotions as a young person. I believe teaching young children how to identify, explore, understand, work with, and express their emotions is an essential life tool that all of us should be taught. But here I am at almost 50 years old, finally learning through my own work, through my own pain, my own suffering, how to identify these emotions and let them go when they come up. So what I notice is that if I'm feeling irritable, on edge, angry, if I want to lash out towards someone and direct some venom or a pointed kind of attack, that is me trying to find an outlet to release my pain and suffering. And so in order for me to direct it towards someone, I need a reason. So I will get angry, even about nothing. It could be nothing. It was this morning, I noticed it, which is why I'm making this video. It was the garbage man that came down the block and woke me up earlier than I had wanted to be woken up. And so here I am, these guys just doing their job, no intention, no malicious ill will towards me. But here I am, getting angry, and noticing that, like, I want to go out and release this emotion that's inside of me. But what I've noticed is that when I get angry, when I want to direct my frustration towards someone, when the tightness and the tension that I'm feeling inside is begging to be released, it is coming out in the form of anger, because it feels safer to come out as anger instead of being expressed as the truth of what it is, which is sadness or fear. And so for a man to admit that he's experiencing grief, sadness, mourning, that he's afraid. For me, in this case, the thing that I'm mourning, the thing that I feel sad about and I'm grieving is I have people in my life, my parents, friends, my dog, who are all suffering with end-of-life challenges, chronic and terminal illness. And being in an environment where I am constantly caring for those that are coming toward the end of their life experience can feel overwhelming sometimes. And so I notice these emotions come up as a sign that lets me know that I need to take some time to practice self-care, to drop in, ground myself with some deep, nourishing, healthy breaths, to allow myself to feel what needs to be felt. And this is how we let go. So if you're holding on to emotions that you feel are inside of you that don't belong to you, or maybe they do belong to you, but they're from the past. They're from something that happened at work, something that happened in a past relationship, something that happened in your childhood. It's a good time to recognize these feelings that are living inside of you and learn to identify them and learn to let them go. And there's a way that we can do this. The key aspect is to recognize when we are in the monkey mind, when we are in the cognitive process of thinking, when we are stuck in our heads, if you will. I call it the monkey mind because it jumps around like a wild monkey and just can create havoc. But sometimes we need to put that monkey where it belongs and, give it a snack and put it down for a nap and not allow it to just run wild in our minds. So in order for us to let go of the things inside of us that are causing suffering in our world, it's important that we connect with our bodies. And that's why we did that breathing exercise. And you can even do it now. You can just simply breathe through the nose, deeply into the belly. And just, that's a simple way to really just connect with your body and get out of your head a bit. And if you can just sit with the feelings in your body, if you can just close your eyes and sit with what you're feeling in your body, see if you can identify what you're feeling and where. For me, sadness comes up. It's the belly, but then it rises through the chest slightly and lives more up in here. And what's important about recognizing our emotions is not to get caught up in the story. So instead of me telling myself a story about, oh, my mom and dad are dying and my friend is suffering with a terminal illness and my dog has congestive heart failure, instead of going into the story and the words, I simply want to ask myself, what am I feeling and where am I feeling it? I'm feeling a butterflies in my belly, a tightness and a welling up in my throat and chest area. And to simply sit with it. Sit with it and feel it. Now the key aspect is, in order for us to release it, we have to allow it to flow. And in order to allow it to flow, we have to open ourselves up. If we are tight and tense and closed off, it will not release. It's us holding on to this emotion, identifying ourselves with this emotion. So let's disidentify with this emotion by recognizing whether there's any tension or tightness. Maybe it's in your jaw. Loosen up the jaw, let it hang. Maybe you're bouncing your leg, or you feel some tightness in your belly, or in the root of your body, or in your chest. And just recognize where you feel any tightness or tension. And breathe deeply into the belly. And maybe just allow yourself to feel sadness, to feel grief, to feel confusion, to feel mourning, to feel fear, to feel anticipation of something bad happening. Notice any tension. Relax the parts of your body that are tense and tight, and allow yourself to simply feel what needs to be felt. Where are you feeling it? Where is it living in your body, in your flesh, in your bones, in your muscles, in your organs? Where is it living? Where is it stuck? And as you recognize this tightness and tension doesn't belong to you, that it really comes as a result of the story you've been telling yourself about yourself, you can choose to consciously relax physically that part of your body, let go, release the past because you cannot change it, release your need to control the future because we cannot, and to simply sit and be with the uncomfortable feelings. We're not going to pour booze on it. We're not going to numb and distract ourselves with work or with interesting images on the internet or doom scrolling or food or all of the things that we like to numb and distract ourselves with because we don't want to feel these feelings. And a lot of people don't want to feel these feelings because they're afraid of these feelings. But the reason that I was afraid of these feelings was because when I was young, I was taught that if I expressed those feelings, that I would be punished. I would sometimes be either yelled at or made to feel less than, as weak or vulnerable, less masculine or manly. And so I grew up thinking that to express vulnerable emotions like sadness made me weak or less than. And so I'm reparenting myself and teaching myself to identify these emotions and let them go because they don't belong to me anymore. And I don't want to carry around the suffering. I want to be able to practice the presence, to be able to show up, to take care of my parents and the people in my life and do my work effectively. And if I am bogged down with emotions that don't belong to me because they don't serve me, it's my responsibility to heal that wound. And as the saying goes, it may not be my fault that I don't know how to express my sadness or my emotions. It may not be my fault that I am triggered to anger and irritability as a result of what I learned as a child. But even though it's not my fault, it is my responsibility to fix it. And so even though it's not your fault that you're suffering with anger, or you're drinking too much, or you're overweight, or you are emotionally dysregulated, even though it's not your fault that you carry around these wounds, it is your responsibility to fix it. Because no one is coming to save you. The people that raised you probably did the best they could with what they had at the time. So maybe you're also holding on to resentment or animosity towards the people that mistreated you or neglected you or abandoned you or didn't allow you to feel the full spectrums of feelings that human beings have. And so maybe you want to blame that person or lash out at them, but that is really bypassing this experience and this process. So if you recognize you're holding this blame and this negativity towards somebody, it is also your responsibility to learn to practice the forgiveness of recognizing that that person is no longer responsible for what you're feeling. It's your responsibility now. It's up to you. We are full-grown adults, and no one is coming to save you. So to learn to recognize if you're experiencing anger and you are allowing these unhealthy emotions to manifest themselves in unhealthy ways, it is destroying your health or your relationships, or it's manifesting itself in a way that's very toxic, where you're pointing your finger at other people and it is destroying the quality of your life. If you continue to look outside to blame other people, it is just going to continue to become toxic and continue to create destruction and wreak havoc in your life. But if you can recognize that these emotions are coming from inside of you, and although you were not taught how to properly identify these emotions, now that you have these tools, now that you have this basic understanding of learning to identify the root cause of your suffering, and then to allow yourself to sit with it, and then choose to stay relaxed and stay open and allow these emotions to flow and release them. With these tools, it becomes your power and your responsibility to use this newfound power to release the emotions that no longer belong to you, so you can be freer and lighter, so that you can move through the world more present and more authentically who you are. Because you're not what happened to you. You're not your thoughts. You're not your emotions. And you're not your story about what's happened to you. And sometimes until we suffer enough, we don't really recognize that we're the ones that are creating our own suffering. And thereby it's our responsibility to choose to end our suffering. And we can do that by recognizing our ability to work with our emotions, to understand ourselves in a way that feels like we have taken back power and not given it away to other people and circumstances and situations in our lives. We take back the power by recognizing it's our responsibility for how we feel. It's our responsibility to take ownership over the emotions we feel. And it takes work, just like anything else in life. If we want to be stronger, more flexible, or build stamina and speed, we have to put in the reps. We have to go out and do the work and practice it. And in the same way, if you're noticing yourself being triggered, if you notice yourself being on edge or irritable, and you're directing your venom towards someone or something outside of yourself, you're leaking energy and you're giving your power away. And so in order to really cultivate inner peace, we have to learn to release the things that no longer belong to us. But first, we need to take responsibility for what we're feeling. Identify those emotions. Understand where they live in the body. And different emotions are going to live in different places. But when we identify where they live, instead of creating that tension that keeps them locked and stuck, slowly release. Release the tension where we feel it. And sometimes simply by releasing that tension, not allowing ourselves to be distracted, and sitting with the feeling, staying relaxed, and allowing it to flow through, we can do this beautiful healing work of self-love where we can release the emotions that no longer belong to us. So, I hope that was helpful. You can always come back to this video anytime you want to just sit and connect to your body and stay grounded. And remember, you are whole and complete just as you are. You always have been, and you always will be.